Greetings to everybody joining us on Dystopia Unmasked on this Wednesday, March 25th, 2026, where we have just gone through unbelievable jester maxing. Are you familiar with the expression jester maxing?
No, I'm not at all.
I just recently picked it up on the social media chatter as an extremely apt term to describe the way the White House has been communicating with the public through social media. They have been unbelievably tactless, tasteless, um, with exaggerations and euphemisms and caricatures and all types of mise en scène to provoke the viewers and to galvanize those that are gung ho for the kinds of positions that the group in the White House has been taking, which is, I think, safe to say, very much in the tradition out of which the Ku Klux Klan came. Very compatible with that tradition. Unfortunately, I believe, for the victims of people of that kind of mentality, it's very reminiscent of the Jim Crow mindset, what is going on in the White House. It's very reminiscent of the redemption era in the United States, which we've spoken about on this program before. So jester maxing is how Donald Trump's politics have been, which is to make jokes so exaggerated that the public will react to them libidinally with frustration, will be triggered, and it has absolutely nothing to do with the facts, but they've sucked the air out of the room, so to say, mobilized attention, monopolized attention, and the media will be after that and trying to fix the moral outrage, and information will not have been passed on. Therefore, there will be confusion as a policy element in this most visible, most powerful administration on this planet at this moment. Having said that, we've been just maxed on Iran so much. There's been an ultimatum of 48 hours, which promised crimes against humanity from the bully pulpit of the White House, which was incredible, unbelievable. We will destroy your energy plants and we'll send you back to the Stone Age kind of talk. Whereupon then those 48 hours were extended to 120 hours. But in all of this jester maxing at the highest, most inappropriate position, people are forgetting about Cuba. Cuba has not been spoken of much, at least not in the bubbles I'm moving in. Very sort of marginally mentioned Cuba. But it seems that measures have been undertaken by the United States government to further isolate and punish the Cubans by depriving them of energy to maintain their infrastructure.
So they've just tightened the sanctions which they already had in Cuba.
Exactly. They've tightened them, and this will lead to victims in larger number. This will accelerate the structural violence under which avoidable suffering will become manifest. People will die. The elderly will die.
I think that we have to give some context to this, because basically what has happened over the last 30 years is that Cuba has produced, has really overproduced in the region doctors and pharmaceuticals.
Absolutely.
And it exported that right across the region, so the Caribbean and Latin America. and that and that has underlay the health infrastructure of the region. Okay, Cuban doctors, Cuban dentists, etc. Cuban people, with sorry, looking after people's ears. So they've really they focused in on that, and they've provided cheap medicine, right? Cheap medicine and cheap medicines. Yeah. Yes. Thank you, Edge Notes. Yeah. ENT. But and what's happened is that the United States is now trying to rip that out. Okay. It started with the story that Cuban doctors were being sent there almost as slave labor. Okay. This is the American medical and pharmaceutical establishment reestablishing its control on Latin America and the Caribbean. Okay, so if because in a place like Guyana, where I'm from, Cubans come to trade. They come, they buy, they take things that they can't get into Cuba, and so on. So what they're doing is shutting all of that down steadily. Okay, and ripping that up, ripping that infrastructure that has been built over 30 years, that was built precisely by Castro. Okay, that benefits so many people right across the region.
Exactly.
Yeah. So there's that, and the second, so that started about 3 years ago. Okay, this is the second wave now of tightening the sanctions and punishing the people to force them to get rid of their governments.
Yes.
Now that's exactly the same thing that's going on in Iran. That's why I went there.
Thank you so much. So, what we're dealing with here, perhaps you could go even a little bit further back, because this whole entire talk about non-proliferation and making sure that Iran does not get enriched uranium to the degree where it can indeed go from civil utilization to military utilization, all this talk is a little bit reminiscent when we're talking about Cuba of the Cuban Missile Crisis. Because there was a time, I mean, not entirely, it's not something that you can superpose, but you can juxtapose it, perhaps. There was a time, I'd have to remember the exact year, where the Cuban Missile Crisis, I think it was Khrushchev. It was Khrushchev, and it was after after the Russians. Pardon me.
No, please.
After the Russians have had found out that the Americans had put missiles in Turkey, efforts were made by the Soviet Union at that time. When I say Russians, of course, I mean the Soviet Union at that time, to put missiles in and on Cuba. And very often the story is told without this little prefatory remark of the missiles they had placed in Turkey. And then, of course, we know about the missile crisis. So there's been always, and it's a bit sad that we've returned. You know me, I find these kinds of things sad. It's a bit sad that we've returned at the macro political level to issues of this degree uh, of recklessness, politics about nuclear bombs that lead to this, that then are followed up with sanctions regime that harm the population at large.
Okay.
Even though they call it smart sanctions. Huh?
I'm not, sorry. I think that we're discussing this in a way that is actually obfuscating what is happening on the ground.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Look, we're now in the third, going on to the fourth week of this war.
Mm-hmm.
Throughout this period, civilian infrastructure has been bombed by the Israelis and the Americans. Okay? What we're seeing programmatically, yeah. And what we've seen is that the Iranians have disciplined themselves in their retaliation, but they have placed some red lines. Yeah. And they place these red lines, and the Americans and the Israelis have exceeded them. The way that they've run it is that the Israelis exceed them, and the Americans go, "Oh no, right? This is terrible. We didn't tell the Israelis to do that." Okay. And so they're playing this game. Now, when Trump has said that he's given it 5 days, they're still bombing in Iranian infrastructure. Okay. So what we have to do is we have to strip back from the Western media performance.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
And we have to frame and following the principles of the 3 clocks, we have to frame the matter by what's actually happening, not what they say.
Not what they say, not the pretext.
Okay.
Not the pretext.
Yeah. So forget what people are saying. Look at what they're doing.
Yes.
Okay. So as we've looked at it, and Edge Notes, I'm going to have a look at what you're putting up there. So what we're seeing is that the official policy, the official military policy of the United States is to punish civilians.
Yes.
Right. It moves from and in ways that cause civilian deaths, from sanctions to bombings.
Yes.
Okay. And they're consistent in that. They're not. This is not inconsistent. They're consistent in that. And their ally Israel is the one who could exceed the United States in that. Okay. And be disavowed.
Yes.
That's the technique. Now, Edge Notes, I think this is doctrine, because it's too consistent to not be so.
It is simply too consistent. And speaking of consistency, if we could highlight your economic clock. So just as a reminder for those of you who weren't here last week and who haven't been reading on Dystopia Unmasked, this conversation is, of course, between Alex and myself, but it features as the current subject matter analysis exploration of what is posted on at Dystopia Unmasked here on Substack. I invite those of you who've just joined us to go and have a look. Alex's latest publications, 4 of them, have been an effort to analyze the opening salvo of the war from February 28th until March, what was it, 3rd or 6th? In the first week, you looked at economic signals, military signals, political signals, 400 plus of them, in order to analyze and synthesize what we could see and what the things, the operations that were going on told us about what was to come. And I invite everyone to go and have a look at the 3 clocks, the economic clock, the military clock, and the political clock essays, written analysis, actually. It's quite expert analysis that you put out there. These aren't simple essays. Very technical and very insightful. And I'd like to, speaking of consistency, ask you from the economic register perspective, what are we to make of the way in which this administration, headed by this individual, who, and we'll get to that too, should be made less relevant in trying to assess and understand the situation of the planet right now? But what are we to make of the timing with which he maxes when he suggests that there will be an attack, and then he retreats in his discourse, in his apodictic discourse, and he retreats and says, we are now opening for discourse? Some have, just a second, some have pointed out that the timing is indicative of market and shareholder manipulation, that he'll speak on a Friday to influence the stock market and speak on a Monday to again influence, and we can see his sons purchasing and buying in adequately in some kind of synchronicity there.
Okay, I've always assumed that in the United States, that is how political business is done.
Exactly.
Right? Usually it's done in a way that can keep some distance. These guys, they're not that sophisticated. Okay, so they don't care. The point here is that, so what do I mean? What I'm saying here is that they are managing the markets.
Yes.
Okay, because the economic clock has implications for their allies and for themselves. Okay, and as a result of that, they're managing the market, but it is not significantly changing their strategy. Right?
Yes.
Their strategy is to punish the Iranian people until they replace their government. That's it.
Now, let's have a look at what we can say about that. Last week, we looked a little bit into Iran, and it has its limits because of how complex the situation is and how sensitive it is. But the data shows that after 79, between 79 and now, but right after 79, 2 to 5 million Iranians left as they felt persecuted in their solidarity to the Shah. Different layers of the middle class and the different aspects of the technocratic class. And these are the people that Western media keeps dragging in front of the cameras to create the impression of what's the word I'm looking for? Of monochromatic stance against the current leadership.
I don't think we can keep our eyes on the Western media anymore.
They're in full-blown propaganda warfare mode.
They're not only in full-blown propaganda warfare mode, they are completely complicit. Okay? There is, what you're seeing is, it's too coordinated. So what you're getting is not, so what we get is no longer news. We have to be very clear. What we have is not news. What we have is propaganda. Finished. Okay? And what has happened is that they have lost control of the nodes that can decide how people construct reality.
Yes.
Right? Definitely. It's all done. Right? So they just lost control over that. So now they're dealing with another. Right. So what we have to look at, what we have to really focus on, is what is this about? Okay. Sorry, I've been unwell, and one of my daughters is in the hospital, so I just need to answer this call.
All right.
So I'll, yeah.
Do you want to mute this? This would be private. Would you? Oh, you can't hear. Okay, so Alex, can you hear me?
No,
Would you want to
I'll leave you
mute?
to talk.
Would you want to mute your mic just for the moment of your conversation? If you would mute your mic, or we might hear things that are none of our business. Okay, thank you so much. So here we are. Here we are, Pax Israeli. Let me look at the comments because I feel like the comments have been moving more than usual, and then we can make it a conversation between us we before Alex comes back. I'm not trying to spam, but this conversation is right in line, Edge Note says, with what I've been covering to a T. I've followed you and I'll definitely check it. The tail is wagging the dog. Well, this is a part of the conversation when it comes to the relation between Israel and the US that puzzles many still, something I can't quite understand how that is puzzling. And when I try to make sense of it, it appears that there's, as Alex was just saying, there's so little clarity about the goals. There's so little clarity about the goals that the parties are really pursuing involved in this imbroglio. The goals of the Iranians are not communicated to the public in the West or to the public that has access to Western media. The Press TV was canceled out of the menu, out of the dish years ago. Russia Today was also canceled out of Western menu. This was insane to me. The West, the beacon of illuminated, self-critical analysis, they canceled Russia Today out of fear that we may be manipulated, which in itself amounts to peak manipulation.
And they bombed it, and they bombed Al Jazeera.
And thank you. We tend to no, we cannot forget that they bombed Al Jazeera and expelled them
Not
from
once. Not once.
exactly, and expelled them from the theater of operations. I mean, this and then they stigmatize them, not saying that Al Jazeera is sacred and holy and free of blemish. They have their own agenda, which we've also spoken about on this program. But the way they were treated, with their journalist being killed and her funerals being, uh, I mean, being stormtrooped.
Shireen Abu
Exactly.
Akleh.
Exactly. I mean, we remember that, and so these are the times. So number one, the Iranian goals, positions, and values are not communicated by the Western press. Number two, the Israeli goals and values are not being communicated at all. Nobody in the West almost understands anything about Eretz Israel.
No, the goals of Israel are to feel safe.
And the right to exist, and so on and so forth. The fact that it is expanding in ways that disregard extant borders, that disregard a people's legitimate right to not be attacked by neighbors, is entirely.
I think you have to be so careful, right? Because you can be dragged in 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 trying to be balanced about this. You get dragged into another layer
of
the narrative construction. Okay?
But we have trained in this. We are geopolitical analysts and all that other stuff that comes with it, which leads to having to do reputational damage control and all of the stuff that they cast on people. All right, that's the world they've created, but the analysis is the analysis. You guys are expanding. You have defined borders that are in line with scripture borders. You want 20% of Egypt at the end of the day. You want 20% of Syria. You want all of you've defined it.
Okay, so we can talk about what they want.
Yes.
Okay?
The media doesn't.
Okay, we can talk about what they want, right? But the media doesn't.
Media does.
Now, what Israel was granted according to the 1967 borders,
4th of July,
right? And the fact that they have exceeded them is also never discussed. Okay, so 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 that we're not having we're actually not having we're not able to have a conversation about Israel geopolitically. It's not possible, right? Because by the time that you start, right, the amount of education that you have to spend your time providing to start the conversation, by that time, the time for a conversation is finished.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And the Israelis know that. Okay. And that's why they have muddied the narrative in the way that they have, right? So that by the time that you are finished bringing somebody up to speed, right? You're done. It's an hour. Okay.
And you're exhausted. You're exhausted because you're fighting through.
Well, your audience is exhausted.
Yes, the
All
audience
right.
is
That's the
exhausted.
point. Your audience is exhausted. So that um and so basically what we have to do is to really bring the conversation back to real fundamentals. Okay? Iran is about oil. The Strait of Hormuz is about oil. It's about the control of Iranian oil, which is historically from the very beginning.
Yep. No quibble there. May I add one more thing?
Mm-hmm.
It is also about being a giant among midgets. If all your neighbors are crippled, you poke Lebanon's eyes out, you cut Iran's arms and legs off, you stab Syria and have it permanently bleeding out, you ruffle all your neighbors up, you become a giant among midgets and among cripples.
But even that, right? The Israelis, uh, the Israelis militarily are severely overrated. Their intelligence services are severely overrated. Right? They've got good technical, i.e., technological expertise.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
They have penetration, so intelligence services penetration, and they can commit atrocities. Right? They do a lot of murders.
You think of the beepers as well?
I'm talking about pre-beepers. They kill people in this place and that place and that, right? And because of the way that, okay, so now I'm talking about their capacity, right? They are literally not very good. Okay, and
Edge has a point. You see, Edge last point.
What's that?
He says signal intelligence good, human intelligence not so good.
Yeah, and so what we get, so what we have is that they cannot even handle a group like Hezbollah. Okay, they can't handle Hezbollah.
Are you thinking of the 2006 war?
Because Hezbollah was formed because of Israeli atrocities.
Yes.
Okay. Now that's never part of the story. Okay. And then they talk about whether you are in favor of Israel's right to exist. It's like, well, yeah, I'm in favor of Britain's right to exist. But then I say, does Britain have a right to exist? What the hell is that?
Where are we? That's nothing to do with the subject. It's like a flare. They keep shooting flares and then we hunt after the flares, justifying stuff.
No, it's like you're having a conversation and somebody turns up, right? Spreads their butt cheeks and farts in the middle of it, right? And then everybody behaves as if it's part of the conversation.
Do you know why? This is a good point to mention this. There are two consequences of this, or two aspects. One is the expert manipulation of guilt, psychological, macro historical guilt. And that is one thing that, in a way, is an invisible guest always on every podium with this conversation, especially when you're looking at Vichy France, when you're looking at Germany 3945, when you're looking at Norway and what was his name? You know, uh, every European country has this specter of guilt infused in their historical identity, which therefore is always in the room with them.
Yeah, but what does that have to do with me?
You see, but the thing is,
what does that have to do with me?
I can tell you, because we are actually one of the normative, very, very specific normative foundations of our stance is the protection, the appeal for the protection of victims across space and time, the appeal for the protection of civilians, and the crime against humanity that was and forever will be that particular crime where out of 17 million civilians, 6 million were Jews.
Okay, look, I'm really sorry. Okay, what happened?
It's an attack.
It's terrible. Okay, I am the descendant of a man enslaved from the Congo.
You know,
right? Who was around in the 1860s and was able to be and was able to free himself. Okay.
Here we are.
Now listen to me. Listen to me. I'm done. Okay. Nobody has any special status in terms of suffering. Okay. What is special? What is special about this is what the Europeans did to their neighbors.
That's it. Unresolved guilt. Unresolved guilt.
This is what they did it to their neighbors.
The unresolved guilt.
Okay. And then when they were finished doing it to their neighbors, they refused to take them out. They kicked them out. Right. And they forced them on another population and then invoked the Bible as justification. Right. That's their shit. That had nothing to do with me.
What is this? How would you classify this? Because
I'm not interested in classifying it. Let them talk about it. That's their problem. No, I don't.
But
it's not my business. But that is not my business. My business is
analysis.
Is to analyze. Okay? And that nonsense is anti-analysis. It's nonsense. Okay? The way that they flood the space is nonsense. It's noise. Yeah.
So I have three words that I want to introduce here: guilt, fear, and taboo. And we talk about that a little bit.
But I ain't guilty.
Pardon?
I didn't do it to them. I'm like, why am I guilty? Why should I be guilty? I didn't do that to them. I'm not responsible for what was done to them.
Guilt.
Let the people who were responsible for what was done to them, right? Audi, Bayer, Volkswagen, right? Let them go deal with that. They did it. They benefited from the slave labor of those Jews.
The Quant family,
right?
Behind BMW.
Right? Not only them, how many of them? Daimler.
Just
right?
a little.
And not only that, but but not only that, but the slave camps in other European countries and those countries who sent their neighbors to those places. Okay? And I bear witness that the narrative that is now being raised in Europe about Muslims and non-Europeans is exactly the repeat of the same energy. Okay? This is the same. So dealing with it in that mythological sense hasn't solved the problem. It's actually made it worse. And what's even worse, is the fact that the Israelis, no, I'm talking of now when I say is I don't want to say Israeli, the Israeli government and intelligence services is in bed with the European far right. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So
Hold on,
I cannot afford to I can't afford
hold on.
to allow my head to be flogged with that.
Edge Notes just said he's an ethnic Catholic. I'm having some trouble. What is an ethnic Catholic? What is
I don't know. No, I'm sorry, but in some places, right, religion is by ethnicity. Right? Just like Jewish, and this is the point, right? You're laughing at that. Jewish is not an ethnicity, but it is now, right? Jewish is a religion.
So then, what
you
is
got Arab
Ashkenazi?
Jews?
So what
So
is
you got Arab Jews. The Ashkenazis are an ethnicity.
So they have square ethnicity square to the power of 2. Ethnicity to the power of
I don't
Ashkenazi
understand you.
Jews. Sephardim. Well, you see, I'd like to point out something here. So, we are now in the middle of the distortion vortex that surrounds the level-headed analysis about things going on in West Asia. There's a distortion vortex with guilt in it, the history, the trauma of the historical experience, guilt, fear, and taboos that block access to certain specifics and detail. There's a distortive vortex surrounding the subject matter.
Yeah.
Distractive, distortive vortex. And here we are in the middle of it. We can turn it off and continue with the analysis. But we have to acknowledge that the subject matter is surrounded and shrouded by this protective, distortive vortex. And the question is, what does it protect?
Exactly. What does it protect? Yeah. Yeah. No, Jews live well in Iran, even now. Edge Notes. Yeah.
But Edge Notes points out also that the West should feel guilty for destroying the Persians for over 150 years. The West should feel guilty for destroying the Persians. The West should also feel guilty for not being able to integrate its Jewish population and rather sending them out.
But that's not my problem. That's their problem.
But it is our problem now because you see, as with the South African.
No. I have Jewish friends, right? We get on well. Okay, here's my point. Here's my point. Here's my point. Right?
I have black friends too, Alex.
That's not my point. No, here's my point. I've got Jewish, Arab, da. The point here is that ain't my problem. That's their problem. Okay? And I refuse to make my conversation only about their insanity. Right?
But we have to enter the peculiarities of those discourses in order to understand where the policies.
But how are we understanding what's going on in Iran with this conversation?
Very simple. For instance, it has to be understood. You mentioned the biblical variable in this conversation. There's another variable in this conversation which cost Livingstone, the many times mayor of London, I think 25 years or so, his reputation and his standing in the Labour Party and globally, when he dared speak in ways that were truncated of historical facts. the Havara agreement, which I don't have the monetary value in today's value at hand. I have it somewhere in my files. But there was an agreement signed, that is the Havara agreement, which had 60,000 lucky ones escape the destruction of the Jewish people in Europe under Hitler's regime.
Yeah.
And that particular group that signed a contract, the Ha'avara contract, is a very different group from a very different decade. This was 1933, February, when Hitler is elected in 33. That contract is signed, I believe, February, March 33. We're not in 39. We're not in 40, 41, 42, 43, 4, and 5. We're in 33. 60,000 sign and get the once in a lifetime chance to escape the oncoming Nazi onslaught on Jewish people. What do they sign? Do they just get to leave? They sign a contract of servicing the sales of German industrial produce to the Arabic surrounding population. This is 1933. We're not talking of 1948.
Yeah, but what does this have to do with me?
It has to do with analysis in the sense that one might want to understand where the military policies that we have seen in the past 30 months through the IDF upon the Palestinian people, where they come from, what kind of mentality and philosophy. And in so doing, this is what you mentioned earlier. Before you've gotten everyone up to speed, you've spoken for 60 to 90 minutes. Before you've been able to say, there was a group of the original population of what was then to become Israel, the original fugitives from Europe, Jewish fugitives from Europe, that migrated early, that didn't migrate during the Holocaust.
Look, I'm really sorry.
But it has to be explained.
I'm really sorry.
We're dealing with
fascists.
Fascists.
Right now, I don't know how many Iranians have been bombed and killed.
Thank you.
Right now, I don't know how many are dead in Gaza. Right. All I know is that the Israelis are preventing the entrance of aid, and they're preventing the entrance of an infrastructure that would be able to count. Okay.
Doctrinal.
And that it's in the interest. No, if people who come in and count, the kind of infrastructure, people who come in and count the dead. Okay. That's what I know. And so conversations which focus exclusively on this group of people who are part of the visiting of this incredible slaughter upon human beings, right? Who have completely upturned a region, and then they lie and claim that the region has always been like that. Okay? This is what I have to talk about. Right? Havara, all this. I know about that stuff. You know I know about that stuff. Right? But there are other people talking about that. That's not my business. My business is to talk about what's going on now. Let people understand what's happening now. And let them understand that how these people are dying. Now, if they are skewing the narrative, then it's my business to remove that very quickly so we can get down to business. We can get down to talking about business.
Why are the US in Iran right now? What are the reasons the US is there?
Oil
or the petrodollar?
How can you separate the two?
Why is the petrodollar so important? Why don't they move on and do something new? They're so creative, so intelligent, so they have AI.
When have you ever seen an empire abandon the basis of its power until it's finished.
What happens? What is the risk to the United States if the petrodollar becomes the petro yuan?
The risk that they're already facing,
Mm-hmm.
which is that when you have excess dollars,
yes,
you need to bring them back to a place that accepts dollars. Right? Accepts a surplus of dollars, allows you to invest a surplus of dollars.
Yes.
And the biggest market that accepts a surplus of dollars is the United States.
Yes.
So you can take your and you can put them in T-bills, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you get a return on them. Okay? You can buy real estate, right? Which is why the United States is financialized, so that the entire economic and financial infrastructure of the United States is built around not so much the petrodollar, but the infrastructure that means that they are the easiest and seen as the most secure place to invest your money.
Exactly.
Okay? And in the imperial system, what they have historically provided in return for that is the stability of the markets.
Yes.
Right? They are the military backstop to the stability of the markets. Okay? They cannot leave Hormuz because they are the ones that are supposed to be able to say that we protect the freedom of the sea. Right? That is the foundation of European empire. Yeah. And they can't control it anymore. Right? They have lost. You notice I haven't said very much. They cannot control it. They have lost. The United States has lost the war. In return, it will turn to destroying Iran. It can't do that. It can only do that to a certain extent, because if they do that, they'll destroy the market, because the market needs to know, to be able to predict when oil extraction can return to some stability. If they can't predict that, then that's a major problem.
This is where your economic clock paper comes in as extremely informative. I'd like to ask the role of GCC, the GCC countries, in this particular conversation we're having right now. What is the role of the GCC?
I don't understand.
As you speak of the economic and financial and business ramifications and implications of the petrodollar, a stable petrodollar system, which is right now in the hands and decisions of Iranians, how stable it is or not. The implications you've just shared with us, what role do the GCC countries play in this equation that you're showing us?
The only hope, the Americans just took a stick of dynamite. Right? Trump just took a stick of dynamite and shoved it in the bag that contains the American petrodollar.
Yes.
Right?
Regionally speaking.
No, internationally. The dollar as stability, right? So there's this, imagine the dollar, right? So there's a bag, and that's the dollar globally. You say this is stability.
Yes.
Trump just shoved a stick of dynamite in it while everybody was holding it.
Was it Trump, or was it an impulse coming from Israel?
The Israelis, right? The Israelis are not in charge. If the Americans put a aircraft carrier, right, in front outside Israel and bombard them, they could do nothing.
Tell us about the Venn diagram overlap between Israeli interests and U.S. interests. There's an overlap. Tell us about that overlap.
Okay. First of all, I don't think I can answer that question in that way.
Okay.
And because you've asked me about GCC,
yes,
then you're asking me about the petrodollar. Now you're asking me about
let's go back
Israeli
to GCC
interest
first. GCC first.
So I'm a bit okay. So if you look, go on, yeah.
I'd like to throw in something. There's a GCC sovereign wealth fund, just maybe for our audience perhaps unfamiliar with. I hate when people throw in abbreviations and don't say anything. So the GCC is the Gulf, was it Corporation Council? It's founded in 1981. It has how many members? 6 members, I believe. Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain, Oman, and I'm forgetting someone in there. And these countries have agreed, pardon me?
Doesn't matter.
Have agreed to cooperate economically, financially, in terms of business, in terms of investment. And they've been doing so with, I believe, both bilateral relations individually to the US and collective relations, intergovernmental relations collectively with the US. And I just want to throw in that I think the sovereign fund, wealth fund, had $50 billion in it in 2024, and that's about what the sovereign fund is investing in the US annually. And then you have in the $2 to $4 trillion monetary flows going from Saudi Arabia and places like Qatar to the US, investing in more recently AI data center infrastructure and things like that. Even Europe, green infrastructure and things of that kind. So there is money flowing into the US from the oil wealth that the region is generating.
Okay. So let's take like Bahrain, Kuwait, the basis of the GCC countries. A century ago, what they were dealing with was pearls, pearls and trade. Their economy was based upon pearls. Then Japan so Japan created synthetic pearls, and they could not compete, and that market collapsed. And at that point, they found oil. Yeah. So at that point, they found oil. So when they found oil, they were rebuilding their economies. So their economies had to be rebuilt within the British imperial format, and then within the American one. Okay. So the question for them, especially the GCC, which, as I said, are these container circulatory kind of states, right? They are states which are states that host trade traditionally and protect that group, and they don't tax heavily and cannot maintain standing armies, large standing armies. As a result, their political technology is to align with a some kind of regional hegemon, at least, who can protect them.
Yes.
Right?
Makes sense, yeah.
And in return, because they don't tax much, in return they invest in you. Okay? That's the deal. The problem that you face, and this is why I talk about the petrodollar is a circulatory system. break the circulatory system, and you have no petrodollar. When Trump shoved a stick of dynamite in the bag, what did that do to the petrodollar circulatory system?
It has shaken. At which level are you asking? Because it has shaken the trust and the confidence in it. It has reduced.
Okay. Go on, I'm listening.
It has reduced security and safety. It has created increasing prices across the world because both the circulation has been cut down and the availability, therefore, has been cut down.
So what does that do to the dollar, to petrodollar?
Well, to the petrodollar, such de-dollarization is the term, I think, the technical term.
No, you're just taking things off the shelf. When that circulatory system
yes
is compromised, what does that do to the petrodollar?
I don't quite know where we're going. What does that do to the petrodollar? It reduces
the petrodollar. The petrodollar is based upon the circulation of oil.
Yes.
That is paid for in dollars.
Yes.
So that you have to keep a store of dollars to buy your oil.
Exactly.
Right?
You have to
That's
keep
the circulation. So now 20% of capacity is now at risk. Okay? And because of whom?
Because of Iran.
No. Because of the United States.
Oh, yes, of course.
Okay? That's how the world is seeing it. Japan is seeing it. That is United States. Iran didn't start it. They started it. Right? That's why I say, took a dynamite and shoved it in the bag of the petrodollar.
But it leads to a decline in demand for dollars.
But it's even more than that. It's even more than that. It leads to people going, you risked the circulatory system. I need another one. Right? And then, as dumb as they are, instead of coming to terms with the Iranians, they send people to the Russians who bombed their pipeline to Europe. Right? In that, they may have fatally damaged NATO.
That's a point I wasn't even going to ask, but now that you bring it up, hold on, before, I don't want us to omit this. In the conversation, so in the first few days when Trump was trying to get people to get involved, to get wet with him, with the US and Israel, there was refusal. And just, I think it was yesterday, the NATO's head speaker was speaking of getting a coalition and alliance together to go and police the Strait of Hormuz together. What did you make of that particular swing?
The point about it is that this was not a problem. The United States made it a problem. Okay? And if you have to police it, it's not a circulatory system anymore. Okay? That's why I'm bored with it, because they're done.
It's an inflammation point.
Yeah, that's why I'm bored with it in terms of analysis, because I'm looking at people talking, going, but right, they're these fundamentals. I don't want to talk about the Israelis, right? The Israelis are irrelevant. The Israelis are idiots. Okay,
the kid has been thrown out with the bathwater.
Yes, and what the United States, who depends on who is the hegemon, who depends upon this circulatory system, has done is let the village idiot lead it into disaster, right? And they're still talking about things that are utterly irrelevant to the problem that they have. The only thing they can do now is go for broke.
I would like to.
But what do I mean by that? Sorry, what do I mean by go for broke? I'm asking you. Do you get it?
I was going to ask you. Yes, you're right. You're right to ask that because I'm not sure what you mean by that.
The only thing that they can do now is secure control over the strait. And that's impossible.
That's the point. And here's where I have 3 points. Point 1, I understand the situation to end exactly where you have it, but only for starters. To end for starters. It's an interesting formulation because I believe what you said being so, it has implications, namely that this Jericho rocket that Israel is working on, this 10,000 kilometers capable rockets, is something that one has to bring into the conversation. That's my point one.
But why?
For the simple reason that in conflict theory, there's an interesting theory that's hard to deny, and that is that the main cause of violence is when conflicts remain unresolved, in the sense that goal pursuit is obstructed. So that theory tells you, or tells us, look for the goals being pursued by the specific actors and look for what obstructs goal attainment. And there you will find the source of violence, destructive kinetic violence. And that being so, if Israel can no longer guarantee its preponderance over the region, which is a goal it is pursuing, if that goal is obstructed by Iran having a say, it will lead Israel to commit violence, is the theory. A second...
but Israel has been committing violence from its very beginning.
Yeah, but the thing is...
Without end.
But if you say they cannot move on because they cannot secure the goal of the Strait of Hormuz, that might give the impression that we're going into a stalemate.
But this is not about Israel. This is about the United States.
Give me a second. So I had 3 points. The first point is there are several actors at that point of contention. And goal pursuit obstruction will lead or trigger an increase of kinetic violence rather than lead to a stalemate.
Okay.
Both the US, now losing its petrodollar hegemony, might consider that an obstruction of its ideal goal, which is the protection of its domestic market away from inflation. If the petrodollar falls, inflation rises at home, domestically. If the petrodollar falls, banking sector volatility increases. If the debt service costs increase, the US becomes Germany in the 20s.
The US, Trump took a stick of dynamite and threw it into the petrodollar bag. What do you think is going to happen?
They did it to themselves, but that would lead, and that's another thing that I feel that people often kind of underestimate. The US has a $1 trillion military industrial attack dog system. And when met with obstruction of goal pursuit, they might use that particular angle heavily.
Okay, so I want to step back, okay? Because Israel's violence is not only driven by the frustration of goal pursuit, right?
Eretz, that would be.
Okay, one of the issues of Israel and violence is that it is only an external enemy that can give the Israelis coherence.
Internal cohesion.
Internal cohesion, internal coherence, right? Because On one end, you've got the secular Jews. Israel is a secular state that claims its legitimacy by a theological means.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and must and in order to be a secular state, it must suppress the theological arm of the Israelis, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that the theological arm must be secularized in, or secular Jews will leave. Okay? And religious Jews have a problem with that. So that's one. It's got other problems. It's got sharp racism against Arab Jews, who they can't even call Arab Jews. They call them Mizrahi.
Mizrahi, yes.
Right? They can't even call them Arab Jews, right? They punish them for speaking Arabic.
Yes.
Okay? They're the ones who produce the music and the culture in the place.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Then they have the Sephardim are generally the Arab Jews anyway. Okay? Then you have the Ashkenazis. Then you have people like the Ethiopians. Okay?
Mm-hmm. And the
You're not
Ukrainians.
dealing.
The Ukrainians.
But the Ukrainians are the Ukrainians are the Ashkenazim. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now, Israel is not a unified state. They need an external enemy, and when they're under internal stress, they find an external enemy. Okay? So okay. I don't like wasting time on too much analysis of Israel. You can analyze Israel in like 2 paragraphs and you move on. It's easy to analyze. They're not that complex, right? And that's why they complexify the narrative, right? I don't want to waste time with that, right? The United States, if the Israelis have a missile that can travel 10,000 kilometers, and what?
Well, the threat backdrop, and I mean the madness has been proven for 30 months now in terms of the willingness to be cruel.
The madness has been proven since 48 and before.
No quibble from me on that.
Look at the statements of Western politicians at that point, right? But I don't want to waste time with them. Why am I talking about them, right? They are an attack dog that is a useful excuse. Okay? Christian Zionists.
We haven't mentioned them today.
Christian Zionists see them as an instrument by which they can initiate the return. And then they will either become Christian or they will die. That tells you everything you need to know about the relationship, right? This is not the relationship of people that are too smart.
And this is just for the
They might be cunning, but it's dumb. And it's hopelessly dumb. It's stupid, right? That's your analysis. That is your alliance. That's your alliance.
But it's dangerous. You see,
people who are instrumentalizing you to fulfill their own agendas, right? And they don't care about you. Okay, I want to talk about Iran. I don't want to talk about this.
But hold on, let's throw in some numbers just so that the audience understands what we're dealing with. It's 7, 8, 9, let's exaggerate, million Israelis, and it's 20 to 40 million, out of which some may and some may not be hardcore, diehard. What was it? Hold on, I'm trying to remember the Pew Research that came out in 24 that said something like 70% of them agree with what is going on in Gaza. So whatever way you want to flip it, 70%.
I'm sorry, over the next decade, right? Over the next decade, you're going to see Jews steadily abandoning that project.
What do they call it? Yerida. It's called Yerida. Yerida is what they call it, as opposed to the Aliyah, where people come.
Okay. So, they're gonna, but I don't want to talk about them. Why are you forcing me to talk about this?
I just want to say a few things. One is that we have to understand that the relation between these 7 to 9 million individuals, 70% of which agreed with what happened in Gaza, to the 20 to 40 million Christian Zionists in the US who support them in order to slaughter them at a later point. So it's 20 to 40 million Christian Zionists out there who are proactively engaged in accelerating the dispensationalist fantasy of, at some point, having the Jews eliminated and exterminated through God's grace. That's how they put it.
Yeah, and I just and it just looks to me like racism in a theological shell.
And hold on, we did say beyond Trump. Today we're looking at this whole thing beyond Trump, and inside this tension that is tacit but there, we also have a preview of what's going to happen. In any case, there is these supremacists, Judeo supremacists, headed by what's his name, Milikovsky and Smotrich and Gvir and these kinds of profiles, and that woman Weiss or whatever her name is. These kinds of profiles are sitting on a nuclear set of rockets, equipped by Germany with 5 submarines and equipped with this Jericho joint. So we do have people who aren't that stupid, because they do know they're getting support, and at some point they will defend themselves against Esau in that eschatological narrative. They will destroy Esau and whatever they call the Christians and the Europeans today.
Okay. Look, for me, that's going to be a European civil war.
It's the people. It's those people.
That would be a European civil war. Right now, at Hormuz, I'm going to deal with Hormuz.
Let's put the other stuff aside.
Yeah,
the other stuff is there. It's there.
Yeah, but and so is my cabinet on the other side of my room.
Yeah, but your cabinet is not threatening to kill everybody. It's not threatening to do a Samson option on you.
All right. Okay. All right. Okay, like it's past.
I would like to thank you for something that has happened in this conversation, which is to speak in ways free from the spell of guilt and fear when approaching this topic, because it is a spell. When you speak to people knowledgeable, I'll give you an example. A professor of mine back in the day, we were talking, and it was a conference of professors and their research assistants and such, and we're all sitting there, and the question was asked in the room of about 40 professors and experts in political science, international relations. The question was asked, Professor, how many nuclear warheads does Israel possess? The professor said, I will not engage in conversation on this matter.
Okay,
I had never seen fear in academia.
I have a fundamental problem here. Right? We're talking about Hormuz,
yes,
Iran, and the war. And we cannot have a conversation about Hormuz, Iran, and the war because you want to keep bringing it back all the time to Israel.
No, to the narrative manipulative methodologies that work.
Yeah, but it does not allow you to analyze what is happening there. And that is precisely the problem.
Thank you. That's all I wanted to say.
That's precisely the problem.
It is a problem. It's in the room. It's everywhere. It's everywhere.
But no, but it's not in my room.
That's true. That's true.
That's it's not in my room. That's not, I'm not, that doesn't dominate me. That's not how, because one has to be disciplined about analysis.
Couldn't agree more.
Okay. And if you're not disciplined about analysis, then all of the mud that is there, you can't see past the mud. Okay. Now, as we're bringing it to the close, this is what I'm going to say. That Trump took a stick of dynamite and threw it in the bag of the petrodollar.
Yes.
Okay. The petrodollar is dependent upon circulation. That circulation, the primary commodity of circulation is petroleum. Okay. And he has just brought 20% of daily flow of petroleum off the market in a war that they they decided they wanted. Okay. And been part of the destruction of infrastructure that means that petroleum cannot join the market for at least another year.
Is it a whole year already? Huh?
It's because you have to rebuild.
Yes.
Okay.
We're in trouble.
So basically, that stick, what we're now looking at is how that dynamite is making its way through the system. Okay. We are not having the conversations about that. And that is the conversation. That has been more damaging to trust in the petrodollar than anything China could have done, anything Russia could have done, anything anyone else could have done. Okay? And it is seen as just retaliation. It is seen as just retaliation. When the Europeans are going on that, oh, no, you're done, Lavrov.
Yes.
What Lavrov said, right, is basically the position of even the Japanese, American allies. Right? Then, hold on. Then, as if that was not enough, the Americans went and said, no, you need to go and get oil from the Russians. To the Indians, who they twisted their arm to do that, and to the Europeans, who they bombed their pipes to make sure that they don't get it, and sold them oil at a higher price, etc. What do you think this has done to that alliance?
Well, today, 48 hours later or so, we have a 22-nation alliance under Mark Rutte sailing to secure the Detroit of Hormuz, the Strait of Hormuz, with Trump's, whatever Trump has waiting there.
Let me tell you something. They have already started hedging. Right?
That was the first signal. That was the first signal.
That is what they started hedging. Right? They're shifted. They're going there. If they step into it, they may initiate a third world war.
I don't know why people are hesitant to say it already is. I don't know why people are hesitant.
You know that I say that Ukraine was the beginning of that, right? That's my position. But the point here is that where in that whole thing is Trump's tweet? They don't matter, right? The Israelis and some new bomb. Who cares? That is the problem.
Thank you, Ed
Right?
Close. World
The
War Five.
GCC are there and they're making their noises, but they're looking at it. How the hell did we get ourselves in this position? The only possibility now, the only way out for the United States is they have to take control of the Strait and they have to take control of Iran. And I say that they cannot.
And this is where my worry comes in, where I say there will be more violence, escalating, kinetic violence, military violence, more destruction, more killing, more death. And that worries me. It worries me.
But I don't know. Well, you might be worried, but who cares? Whether you're worried, this is what's going to happen. This is already what's happening. It's not about you. It's about the situation. Okay?
I'm from the world that used to work. I'm from a world where we
I don't want to go back to those conversations. I don't want to go back in those places. I'm done. Yeah. So that is what we face, right? That's what we face. And hard, like it, don't like it, that's what we face.
I have to throw this at you. Prevention. There was a thing. I'm from my mentors survived World War II and taught me never again.
I'm sorry. It's not relevant anymore.
But what we are saying is Iranians are going to pay the region. It's
the region just Iraq paid. Okay. Iran is going to pay. Million. This is why I talk about necropolitics. These are a category of people deemed disposable.
I have goosebumps all over my body, Alex.
These are a category of people deemed disposable, right? You have to understand, you have to be able to listen to narratives and understand the implications of narratives, right? This is a category of people deemed disposable.
But Alex, this world, there was what about my generation? I was born into Bretton Woods. I was born into violence prevention.
I don't know. I think somebody was putting weed in your tea.
I was born into the UN Charter. Alex, we have.
I think somebody was putting weed in your tea because if you couldn't see what was going on, right? If you couldn't see what was going on, I don't know.
My God,
right?
Alex.
That world you describe, I never saw it. Never. Right? I saw this. I saw the story, and it was a damn good story, right? And so I looked at American media like that. I said, "Oh man, they tell good stories." Right?
But Alex, I was on my way. I've been to the UN General Assembly. I was on my way with my suit and my tie and I was on my way into that.
And
Alex, there's a whole lot. You have to, the application for the UN is a difficult process, man. It's a whole building in Geneva and New York. There's thousands of people working in this. I'm just saying it was. Indeed, I dodged a bullet. But I'm just saying that we have to separate the career thing and the politics, the meetings, the Security Council resolutions, the procedures,
okay.
The blue helmets trying, when they're not busy.
Let me tell you something. I'm here to do analysis. Right? I'm here to do analysis. I'm not here.
Oh man, Alex,
to deal with that.
We are talking about a coming escalation and loss of life of immense. Okay,
I'm sorry. We're talking about the United States and the West, and the revelation of the necropolitical underside, right? As their position is threatened.
It bothers me, Alex. I don't. Right. When I see this, when I see this coming, I don't, I can't just look at it and say, okay, this is what my analysis yields, ladies and gentlemen. I'm done. Bye. It's something. So okay. So what next? So we just sit and watch them do all of this, burn
Okay,
these
tell me what you
kids.
can do to stop it.
I can't do anything, but something. Well, who? The question is, who can do anything? And
what I'm asking you, what can you do about it?
Well, we're doing our part, which is an analysis. But
yes, but then you have to do analysis properly.
Article 33. Article 33.1 in the UN Charter says that local, regional organizations capable of doing.
What does the UN Charter have to do with me?
But there must be organizations capable of conflict resolution, mediation, conflict management.
What does the UN Charter have to do with me?
At a subsidiary level, it was a good sort of what does the UN have to do with? Well, they tried with UNRWA. They tried.
What does the UN Charter have to do with me?
I'm speaking of it because it could help. The institutional framework was set up for things like this to be prevented. The scourge of war must be prevented. Chapter 2.1.
All right. I think.
What do we do with that? What do we do with the
legacy? No, don't include me in that. Don't we me.
Alex, so we're just going to sit here and watch.
Don't we me. Don't include me in that nonsense. I don't have time with that.
Alex, so we're going to sit here and watch all these people die, and that's it. That's our destiny.
Where were you when the Congo was happening, and you had the Rwanda? Okay. I am sorry. This is not new. And I'm not going to behave as if it is. Okay? This is not new. This is not abnormal. And I am not going to behave as if it is. Sudan. Yes, thank you. Right? Now, if you can maintain that kind of split consciousness, that's your business. I can't do that. Okay?
So what are we saying in this?
So I've said what I have to say. I'm saying that that analysis must be disciplined.
The program is called Dystopia Unmasked. And the unmasking tells us, among other things, that it was all a lie.
No, it tells you that it was all a lie.
Oh, but I'm surely not alone. Surely I'm not alone.
Right. I didn't when I was talking about Dystopia Unmasked, right? What I wanted was a means of making clear what happens.
Yes.
Right. Now, because a long time ago, I came to the conclusion that if you paid attention to refuting the story,
yes,
you were going to be refuting stories and stories and stories and stories until the cows came home. Because there's so much bullshit in the space, right? That's a full-time job. I'm not I'm not here to do that. Okay? Not here to do that. Here to make analysis of what is actually happening. Okay?
There's a lot of pain in the analysis. I mean, there's a lot of
but that's my shit to deal with. When I have to sit down and cry or whatever, that's my stuff.
There are no others. There are no others.
Yeah, these are nice things to say. Okay? These are lovely things to say. Right? That don't help those people.
Let me push the time window.
No, I've been ill. Sorry, I've been ill.
Thank you, Alex, for your time. And this is the sad conclusion of what the analysis yield. Escalation, more escalation ahead, because we're dealing with actors who have committed to paranoid, schizoid strategies.
Yeah. And you have to be very careful, because if you want to be in that space where you want to behave as if this is abnormal, after looking at that history, and before because it's the last thing before I go, right? Remember when I was doing the analysis of how the United States got an insurance-based medical system?
Oh,
right?
It has been like this.
It got United States got an insurance-based medical system because they thought that that making public health
would
freely available
would
freely available would be in the interest of black citizens, and if we didn't do it, that they would die out. Right? Hoffman, in the company of death. You look at the article, in the company of death. Right? Now, that was complete. That was one, genocidal, necropolitical. Okay, and it hurt everyone
to this day.
Okay, so I'm going to do my analysis, and I'm going to do my analysis with a good hard nose, because at the end of it, what I want people, you must be able to facilitate people seeing, so that we can actually make real decisions based upon what really happens, not upon somehow this is abnormal and we have to get it back to normal.
I wasn't even going there. I was going in, if I don't want to get bombs dropped on my head, we need to organize in ways to avoid that happening again. But
yeah, but you're not in that position. So what you can do is analysis.
In that position. The world is as it is.
So don't behave as if you're in that position, because we're not there.
And there's no one. There's no one on the world stage in that position.
There must be. There must be. Right? Because those people are scarcely, those people are scarcely mentioned, because the most effective ones are, you keep your head down, you do the work. Okay? All right. So I'm done.
It was a pleasure, Alex. Thank you for taking and making the time despite not being well. And the world is as it is. The world is as it is. This was Dystopia Unmasked. You will find articles. How many? More than what number?
It's over 120.
You will find all these articles dealing with a variety, a multiplicity of angles on these issues by Alex on Dystopia Unmasked. Please visit our page. Be so kind and restack these conversations we have to get more people into these conversations. It's always a pleasure for me, Alex, to spend the Wednesday window with you to speak on these matters, and see you next Wednesday with everybody else in here. Thank you.
Thank you, and lots of love to people, and be strong in the week. What we're getting, we're in a crazy time, and salams to people, and lots of love.
And God bless those still living whose time is counted already. Your analysis predicts it. We foresee it. There's nothing we can do.